comes down to computers communicating.
The information superhighway can be a confusing mix of on-ramps and off-ramps.
Bitcoin is worthless artificial gold.
Is it still rat poison?
Probably rat poison squared.
We need to get into the world of, okay, this is actually foundational technology.
What the Internet of Money does is it creates a single network which can do a microtransaction to a gigatransaction.
The Internet is going to be one of the major forces for reducing the role of government. The one thing that's missing, but that will soon be developed, is a reliable e-cash.
Welcome back to Final Settlement. It is Wednesday, October 9th, and today we're joined by a fascinating guest, Pierre Corbin. Pierre is the founder and CEO of a Bitcoin payments company, more specifically a Bitcoin payment gateway platform called Flash. And Michael and I have had the opportunity to get to know Pierre over the past few months and quickly became eager to get him on the pod and share a little bit more about what he's been building. So we have plenty of topics to get into today with Pierre, but welcome to the show. How are you doing today, Pierre?
Thanks, Brian. Good to be here, and I'm doing great.
Yeah, I think we've had a number of conversations in recent months and recent weeks, and just really getting excited about what you guys are building. But maybe a logical place to start would be a little bit more about yourself and your background, your journey to Bitcoin, if you will. Having started more in sort of the traditional world of consulting, and then even doing some filmmaking, and then ultimately deciding to build in Bitcoin and build Flash. So maybe a little bit of color around your journey and sort of past influences and work and study.
Yeah. Pierre, before jumping into it, I just thought of I didn't see it. I don't know if anybody watched, but it'll be interesting to hear your take as a Bitcoin filmmaker.
Yes, good point.
How you would contrast that as compared to whatever was shown last night on HBO.
Yeah, I didn't watch it actually. I've just seen Twitter all about it, and I believe Peter Todd is actually Satoshi, right? I think that's what.
Yeah, that's where they landed. I watched it. It was flimsy at best. Like there was no like hard evidence, no smoking gun. And I think for people who know who Peter Todd is, like there's a lot of reasons why he isn't Satoshi that I think just weren't covered in the film, and he sort of left those out. So but curious, once you do get to watch it, what your thoughts would be.
Yeah, but there is one film. So I also organized Bitcoin Film Fest, and we screened at this year's edition. We screened a film, Searching for Satoshi, that is a Canadian film, and this one is really good when it comes to investigating who could be Satoshi, and it doesn't really come to a conclusion, which I think is also good about it. But I don't think Peter Todd is the one. I have more. Another idea based on that film that I recommend everyone to go check out, Searching for Satoshi. But okay, so a bit about myself. So I'm Pierre Corbin. I'm French and Spanish. I live in Poland. I've just kind of lived all my life going back and forth. I studied finance, and during my degree, I just picked up programming because I thought it would be, just a good skill to have, and I completely got into. I mean, I was studying at night. I was working also restaurants and evenings, and I would spend 8 hours a day just programming. So it was a crazy time. But this led me to starting my first job after my studies, and I was just programming a lot and trying to get as much programming as possible into my daily work. And I just started automating a bunch of tasks for everyone in the teams. And little by little, this got me into working in financial information systems of different companies. I was consultant at Accenture, and mostly around financial information systems as well. But of course, it all depends on the project and such. And in that time, I was just studying Bitcoin a lot. I started with, crypto in 2017. I guess, many people started there.
The hero's journey.
Right, exactly. And made a bunch of money that I then lost a bunch because that was all crypto stuff. But then, during the bear market, that's when I actually, no one cares about crypto during a bear market. No one talks about that anymore. And so the only thing that there was really to talk about was Bitcoin. And so I started studying a lot more, just Bitcoin, Bitcoin, Bitcoin. And and in 2021, I was just so obsessed about it that I was just getting tired of my job. There was no going back to the office or anything. I just, wanted to change. And I thought it's the time to quit my job and focus on Bitcoin because I think that's the, greatest technology, the greatest invention in my lifetime. So, that's what I should focus my time on. But the first thing I did was, not in programming, actually, it was in filmmaking. Filmmaking was just something I really always enjoyed. I also did a filmmaking course when I was a student. It was just storytelling is something I'm attracted to, and I always wanted to do something in that. And when you quit your job and you say, I'm going to work in Bitcoin, it doesn't really mean anything. So I was just trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And I watched a documentary that really inspired me, and I thought I can do the same thing. It's just about storytelling and good research. So so I did The Great Reset and the Rise of Bitcoin. If anyone hasn't watched it, I recommend it. And multiple things happened along the way. Bitcoin Film Fest was the first initiative, trying to bring a bit more of Bitcoin only culture and community here in Poland as well. We did the second edition this year. But last year, I was also just contacted. A friend of mine reached out saying, look, let's meet, let's talk, because he knew I was, of course, very technical. We had very similar backgrounds when it came to the corporate work that we did, but completely separately. And he told me about, what we can do with AI, how easy it is to build things now, and there's big opportunity. Maybe we should do something about it. And so, he told me everything about how this works, and I thought, okay, that's very interesting. I'm happy to do something in it. Let's try and find some ideas, but it has to be Bitcoin focused because, of course, I want to dedicate myself to Bitcoin. So if I was going to spend my time on something that was even AI related, it had to be around Bitcoin. And so we created a Talk to Satoshi, which was an AI chatbot that was taking just different books for each of the answers, and it would answer as if it was Satoshi. And we released this in May, I believe, of last year, and it was a really good success. There was over 300 articles written in a week. It was very exciting, and that's when with my friend, we just realized that working on this was really good. We had similar ideas with the similar kind of things were driving us forward, and so we decided to do more out of this, and that's when he became my co-founder at Flash. And we didn't start with what Flash is right now. I think that's what happens to most businesses. At first, we were trying to figure out, okay, is there really opportunity in AI and what can be done with it? And it's quite tough. We can go there if you want to, but essentially it's I think it's a tough place to make money because you're just always chasing for the next new thing. And I think it's not a great way to build a business over the long term because you end up always competing against the big ones, I think. But what we decided to do was, okay, well, maybe there's a way to use the Lightning Network for microtransactions and nostr for messaging, so everything is private and encrypted. And this way we could create a marketplace of APIs and of data storage. They're called vector stores, that then developers would be able to just plug and play essentially in their own applications. And for each API request, there would be this microtransaction that happens before the response is given. Which is great, super cool, but very, very, very niche. And we kind of realized that, and we thought maybe that's not really the way to go. But while working on that, we stumbled upon Nostr Wall Connect, and generally just using Nostr more for user management and so on. And in building that, we called it nostr-X. That was the name of that project. And in building that, we realized that actually the power in all of this is Nostr Wall Connect, because there's so many complicated tools out there even today, or things that are added to certain protocols that are being created, and that I think are complicated. And Nostr Wallet Connect really simplifies that while making sure there's always self-custody, and that it's integrated and interoperable with all of the wallets that use Nostr Wallet Connect to. And that's when we thought, okay, maybe that's what we need to actually push further. That's because if we can trigger payments for people, well, then we can change how applications are being built. And that's what Nostr Wallet Connect does. We're just trying to find a way where we could fit in that, and where would there be the strongest need for that, because there's a lot of applications that can be built that leverage this. I mean, you can think of a Nostr client that allows direct payments and so on without ever holding custody of users' funds, thanks to Nostr Wallet Connect. And that's a great use case. But I think it's difficult to build a Nostr client. And if what it really changes is how payments are made, how Bitcoin payments are made, well, in that case, we should go for the payments market, because this is where a lot of tools are going to be needed, and Nostr Wallet Connect can leverage, can be leveraged for this.
At Onramp, we believe that Bitcoin is the most important asset of the 21st century. The hard part is securing it right. There are shortcomings with keeping your coins on an exchange, but also with setting up your own self-custody arrangement. Onramp solves for these concerns. Our multi-institution custody solution maximizes security and minimizes counterparty risk, ensuring that your Bitcoin remains securely in your possession, and provides built-in inheritance planning to ensure your family is protected as well. Onramp provides peace of mind for your Bitcoin journey, whether for your whole stack or for part of it as a complement to your existing self-custody setup. For more information, check us out at onrampbitcoin.com.
Yeah, no, it's fascinating, because I think the vast majority of people who have gotten interested in Nostr, even like a cursory interest, I think most of them have been focused on, Twitter clones, like the social media aspect of what Nostr can do. And I think a real key insight of what you found with Nostr Wallet Connect in particular is like, this is extremely applicable to the payments world, and actually making Bitcoin payments more reliable, more usable, and just more efficient generally. Could you drill down a little bit more on, we've talked about Nostr on the show a few times, but just a bit of an overview of how you view Nostr as this open, interoperable protocol that is very complementary to Bitcoin and Lightning, and then more specifically what Nostr Wallet Connect actually does and what it unlocks.
Yeah. So essentially, the Nostr protocol is just a set of rules, just like email, SMTP is, and anyone can create a client for that. And of course, the features that are added into Nostr, or the first features that were added at least, were really social network features. The idea being that we could have this decentralized kind of internet with decentralized social network. So you can just, have your own personal profile information, you can post things, you can send DMs and so on. But then Bitcoin was added onto it, right? And this is great, because we see a lot of really, really good use cases around it. And the first use cases that everyone has been looking at, as you mentioned, is a client that just interfaces like a Twitter or other platforms like that. But I think that's really just the very first use case, because I think even that's already a layer 2 kind of use case, because the first part of it that is very interesting for everyone is the fact that I have my profile and I can just jump from one client to the other and just experience the same network differently. So the thing that people find really cool is not the social network side of it, is the user management side of it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And that's something that we really want to be able to leverage at Flash, because when you create an account at Flash, even if you log in by email, we create Nostr keys for you, and this is everything that we use in our backend, and this is how we also allow for communications on Nostr through the profiles that are created on Flash, because Flash is essentially also a Nostr client. The only thing is that we don't look at posts. None of that. We just take care of user profile information, some encryption thanks to Nostr, and then Nostr Wallet Connect. And Nostr Wallet Connect is, it allows for wallets and relays So it allows for a wallet node to be connected to a relay, and it allows for wallets to communicate via nostr. So it solves a bunch of problems. One of them is the always-on server kind of thing. There's just technical necessity and difficulty in the space. But generally speaking, the main feature that it brings to the table is that it is a shared API among every single Nostr Wallet Connect participant. So if you're a wallet owner, company, startup, whatever it is, it takes, an afternoon or such to integrate Nostr Wallet Connect to your wallet. And the moment you do that, well, then developers, they can use one function, and it'll be the same function for all of the different wallets that are there. So me as an application developer, I do not care what wallet the user is using. I don't need to create the individual integrations with all of these wallets, look at their API documentation, and I don't need that. I just need one. And this is pretty powerful because it allows to bring wallets together in one interface. And wallets essentially become backends to any of the applications that are being built. And each application can recreate their own interface of a wallet because you have access to all of these functionalities, which I think is just, in terms of breaking down the concept of what a wallet is, it's pretty interesting. I think it can bring a lot of change.
Yeah, it's hard to comprehend. Like even the Twitter instance, it's the notion of user management and having siloed gardens with Twitter, Facebook, and then being able to port over the public key and then manage that profile is one thing. But then when you start thinking about like the Venmos, the Cash Apps, and every financial institution has its own user management login, and they don't speak to each other. And so effectively, you can have the Bitcoin layer that's interoperable. So from like Strike to Cash App, you can send Bitcoin, but they still don't allow for any kind of payment infrastructure because Bitcoin's naturally a push protocol. So you need an intermediary like protocol, which is Nostr, to manage, or Nostr plus Wallet Connect. But then the second and third order effects are still like mind bending on like what that entails from A, Bitcoin that we haven't seen, but then B, just the traditional financial architecture that has historically been this like siloed garden. It's it's a fascinating. Did I summarize at least part of the like innovation or things that are changing here with that?
Yeah,
Correctly?
at the high level, that's exactly what it is. Because then we can enter in the granular, and there's like, and I mentioned this a few minutes ago as well. There's this new feature essentially that is brought to, thanks to Nostr Wallet Connect, that is generally brought to Bitcoin. Generally, whether it is on-chain, Lightning, Liquid, eCash, it doesn't matter, is the fact that Nostr Wallet Connect allows for direct debit. So essentially, as if I have a wallet that is installed on my phone, or whatever kind of thing that is Nostr Wallet compatible, I can connect my wallet to an application and give limited control over my wallet by this application. And then the developers of this application, they can just create different interactions, and they can trigger payments even if I'm not on my wallet. I don't need to sign a transaction manually myself. I gave this power to the wallet developer, and that's to the app developer, and that's thanks to Nostr Wallet Connect. So I can be on a run, but I have my monthly payment for Netflix that has to happen. Well, it's the same experience as with a debit card. I can be on my run. The payment will anyway happen in Bitcoin. And that was impossible until Nostr Wallet Connect. And what's also fascinating in that is that it's what we need to be able to, at scale, bring microtransaction into Lightning as well. Because, if you think of so there's this protocol E014 that was developed by Lightning Labs. It allows to pay for API requests. My understanding of it is that it's not very efficient. There's a lot of there's issue in terms of authentication, and in terms of it's not really one-time payment for the API request. You kind of have to set a budget aside, so you do not have access to this Bitcoin, and it's just for every request that you do, it's automatically taken from that budget that you already set aside. Nostr Wallet Connect changes that because I can connect my wallet, and it will just take payments whenever they're needed. There's no need to set aside a budget. I can just manage my finances the way I would normally do in the fiat world, which, if we want to bring people to Bitcoin, that's the kind of user experiences that we have to be able to bring and create the right tools that leverage these technologies, because that's what people are used to. I think it's going to be tough to bring people onto Bitcoin if the user experience is just not on par with what they're used to. And I think that's pretty big and very exciting for the future of self-custody, because a lot of these things are doable in custodial solutions. It's so much easier if you control people's funds. You can do all of these things. But when I talk all of this, it's all with self-custody in mind, and I think this is what's really amazing.
Gotcha. Maybe it's a good transition to talking a bit more about Flash specifically. Maybe you could provide sort of an overview of the business, where it is currently, where it's headed, different features and functionality, and real use cases that are leveraging that infrastructure that we kind of just walked through.
Yeah. So as I mentioned earlier, the moment you enter Flash, you create an account, you'll have a nostr account directly, and you can use it to log into other nostr applications as well. The purpose of Flash is really to bring solutions for businesses to monetize whatever their business model. That's really what we're trying to be able to provide here. And so we started off with the simple use cases. The first one was a paywall. So you can go into Flash, you can create a paywall, it'll generate a script, and this script, then you can just load it into any website builder or whatever it is. And when the page is the website is opened, and then the paywall appears. And pretty simple. We've done the same thing for video, which I think is pretty innovative, but a very interesting one as well, where you can just set a budget. Because again, since we can do microtransactions and we can trigger these payments, then it's very easy for us to be able to create new experiences around pay per minute watched. So on. So that's another thing that anyone can create, and it's as simple as filling in a form with 5 points. It generates a script and it can be added to any website. So we also have payment links. We also have a widget that is also pretty nice, filling the gaps after such solutions kind of disappeared. A simple widget. Again, you add a script onto your website, and there'll be a small little icon bottom right of the screen that you can have a call out for users, and just buy me a coffee is what I added on my website, and people can just easily donate some satoshis through such tools. And so these are the first things that we started building. But then again, we realized that, we have user management with nostr, even though we don't know our users. And we have the direct debit payments. So we thought, maybe actually we can do something that no one else has done so far, because it was technically impossible, which is subscriptions, so automatic recurring payments. And that was the next big thing that we really built that was truly innovative, and that we're still continuing to build, because of course we need to make it reach the standards of other platforms like Stripe, that is the standard for subscriptions in the fiat world. It has to be about developer improvements for developer experience and so on. So there's a lot of work going on there. And essentially this allows to schedule payments. So you can do it once a month, once a week, once a year. There's really many options there. And it allows to manage for subscriptions. So any user can, using a Nostr Wallet Connect enabled wallet, can just connect his wallet to any subscription for any business. And they can start accepting these payments in Bitcoin. And every month, automatically, these payments are going to happen. And as an app developer, you can, of course, you're notified about that. You can arrange your entire backend to handle these subscriptions and be able to, manage features, hide features, and create your own things in your applications or websites. And the subscription is as simple as even a no-code solution, just to get monthly donations to whatever you want. And so from there, of course, we're thinking, okay, so what's the next thing that could be needed? How else do people monetize? And of course, the big one is e-commerce. And we started off by, we need to create first our backend for that. So let's take things one step at a time. If we want to provide solutions for e-commerce, then people need to be able to have products. They need to have a checkout page. right? And the moment they have products already added onto the platform, well, then we can display these products in many different ways, right? So we added a point of sale where directly from Flash, you can see all of your products in a point of sale, and you could directly in person on your phone or through a tablet or website, you'd be able to manage your store. When customers come in, you just, select what are the products that should go. The price is automatically for summed up calculated. It generates an invoice. And once it's paid, all of this gets added to your reporting, including inventory management, trying to think kind of big as to what the needs could be there. And so once we create to the point of sale, well, great. So some more people come out and reach out to us. They say, well, great. Well, now can I have some kind of store? Well, sure. Well, again, the same thing. We have products already. Let's just change the interface, and now users can have a store. And the next thing that we're working on now that will be released in just a few weeks will be plugins for Shopify and for WooCommerce that will, take us further down the path of integrating with other platforms that are out there. And soon after that, be able to also bring subscriptions in Bitcoin onto these platforms. I mean, WooCommerce, there's hundreds of thousands, there's millions of websites built in WooCommerce around the world. It's the number one platform to do it. And if we can integrate with these, including for our innovative products that are the subscriptions, I think we can, there's big opportunity there. Yeah.
You're on mute,
I
Mike.
think you're on mute.
It's super exciting, and I think you mentioned it, but it's worth calling out again, is everything you're describing is in a non-custodial fashion. And I think why that's ultimately important is because it pushes to the end user, corporate client, their Flash is agnostic to it in the same way that Stripe is agnostic to the bank account that funds are getting swept to. It is just providing a utility, a service in the middle ground, and the tooling around it for payments and the additional services that are attached to it. And I think there's been a gap in the market because traditionally you have existing Lightning or payment services, but then they all have their own bespoke or custom custodial situation, and that comes with, I don't want to say significant trade-offs, but it comes with trade-offs. So Pierre, I don't know if you want to speak to that and just like how, was that designed from the very beginning to be interoperable and agnostic to the endpoint of where funds were delivered, or was that something that the market like kind of pulled from you as far as looking for something that was, they had their own kind of like bring their own custody service?
So for us, what really matters is to make sure that we make these transactions peer-to-peer, right? So they're in the more traditional finance, it's account-to-account transactions. Because anyway, this is on the rise, right? Like I think this is something that can also allow us to position ourselves nicely, because the traditional finance world is also pushing for direct account-to-account transactions. And it's gaining, I mean, I'm based in Poland right now, 70% of digital payments are direct account-to-account transactions because there's just this great tool in Poland for that. In other countries, it's much lower. I think France, we're at a 7% penetration, right? But so I think it's,
Can you describe it? Can you describe that? I'm not as familiar with that term.
So
or like the
essentially,
trend.
it's like a peer-to-peer transaction, but directly from my account to another user's bank account. Yeah, it's bank account. Yeah, so it's not self-custodial. Obviously, the bank holds the funds, but the payments are just more efficient, faster, instant, basically.
And is that like
just like top down, like so like all banks in Poland
Yeah,
utilize
that's
this?
right.
Interesting.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And is, I mean, you're definitely familiar with this. So is it because like European and Latin American markets have less of the like red tape between financial institutions that can do that? Because I think like in the US, it gets harder to do the direct to direct, right? So that's where you have like the silos of the Venmos and Zelles and the Cash Apps of the world.
Yeah, so I mean, I think obviously a lot of it is just, it comes down to regulation and choices that are made, right? I know in Europe in general, these account-to-account transfers and new payment standards to allow for instant payments, they're getting more and more popular. But the solution that I mentioned that exists in Poland has been here for already a few years. It was ahead of other countries in the region, and so it's gained a lot of popularity. And I think Finland was another one that came up with a similar solution. And they're also at about 60% of their digital payment transactions that are using this direct account to account. So essentially the payment doesn't go through all the steps and intermediaries of banking route. They can go directly from one account to the other. And that's the concept of peer-to-peer, but peer-to-peer is, for me, only applies when there's custody involved. Otherwise, I mean, you're not a peer in the transaction, right? And so generally speaking, it's a general trend that is coming, that is these account-to-account payments, which makes so much sense, obviously. And being able to show and be part of that, I think, is pretty important, because we'll be able to, it'll speak to people more as we can just follow the trend that is also happening in the traditional finance world. Now, of course, we're doing it all in self-custody, which is the beauty of it. And generally speaking, I think the aspects of self-custody are more important than we realize for business. It just makes things more complicated, because the moment you want to be able to offer any kind of solution that allows for direct payments within an application, including some microtransactions, well, then the only solution that exists today is taking custody of user funds in one form or another. And this means that you need to KYC your users. And no one wants to KYC users. I mean, it's risks for security, but on top of that, it's also expensive. No one really wants to do it. And no user likes being KYC'd, right? Of course, you do it because you need to do it in order to be able to use a particular service, but no one likes it. And there's a lot of people I even know personally that wouldn't go for a certain solution or an application because it requires KYC and they want to remain private. And I think that's what self-custody unlocks, and it's pretty great.
Yeah, and I think just from a business perspective, building, it's very like there's this notion of you want to have the largest total addressable market. You want to do everything in the terms of like what the market presents, i.e., regulations and onboarding and the things that are presented. But at the same point, you want to have redundancy and fault tolerance in case that isn't always there. So we heard of choke point 1.0 was like late 2009, 10s when it came to firearms and other, I think gambling websites where you couldn't accept payments. We know what's happening with the banking situation in the US, this 2.0. And so this notion of like gateway Stripes of the world not being able to let clients or customers accept payments for their services, you always want to kind of build in a Bitcoin world this notion of censorship resistance, interoperability, that you're not worried about that. And so if you have the right tooling and what you're providing, and others where you have the intermediary, it's agnostic. It's a technology. It doesn't know what's being sold or bought. It's just facilitating. But then to your point, if you get onboarded from a microtransaction or needing any kind of financial services in the traditional world, you need to do the KYC onboarding, and that presents a lot of risk for the funds that are deposited. And it's not to say we don't participate in that world. It's just from a pure, I like to joke, like we're in a bull market for overreach, right? And because of that, you always want, if you're being prudent and pragmatic, you want to build with the notion that your business isn't knocked out because somebody doesn't like it. And so at Onramp, it's very similar in the sense that we partner and facilitate and do all the things required from a regulated entity. But at the end of the day, like our endpoints are the keys, and somebody can deposit Bitcoin for custody services. They pay in Bitcoin. They can pay in Stripe as well. But then ultimately, if for some reason banking relationships aren't available, you could still custody the Bitcoin with the private keys, and you can still take your fees in BTC, and your business is operating fine. Probably takes a hit because some people need to pay. And if that's happening, there's probably like a hit to the industry from a short-term perspective, but you're not knocked out of the game, where we saw 6 months ago with all this stuff with Samurai. People just get knocked out of the game. They leave the countries and all that. So anyway, it's just more of a nod to, I think it's really commendable, and also like forward thinking that we're only going to see more and more people get deplatformed, just because that's just the nature of centralization, and that it's important to build the tools that can play within the existing system, but also outside of that system.
Yeah, and I have a personal story also around such intermediaries and platforms that I think we have the opportunity to change completely, which I'm very excited about. so I mentioned I made a documentary, The Great Reset and the Rise of Bitcoin. It's on YouTube. So I have a YouTube channel, and I reached over 700,000 views just on my channel. So very quickly, I was able to start monetizing, and that was cool. Some money just started accumulating on the Google account, and after a certain amount of time, I was able to withdraw these funds. Well, it turned out I couldn't. It was over 2 months of process going back and forth with Google, because there was one problem with Google Pay, but actually, no, it was YouTube, and they were just sending me back and forth. And it took over 2 months for me to resolve that. When, I mean, in a world where we can build applications where there are direct peer-to-peer payments, like, I understand that Google could remain an intermediary because this is, how can I explain that? Today, when it comes to YouTube, Google has two roles as intermediary. There's one that is the platform and the content and how you experience YouTube, but the other one is the payments and the fact that people can earn, people can spend, and so on, right? And if you remove completely the payments part from their control, or rather remove them as an intermediary for the payments part, well, then such issues would never happen, because you could be paid directly. It's not waiting on an account. You can be paid directly. And we have a bunch of ideas on how we can try and, change a bunch of Google products particularly, but, generally internet products and the payments that they have, because we can do it. Subscriptions are great, but I think down the road, Bitcoin microtransactions, instant scheduled payments, etc., automatically triggered payments, I think are the future of how payments will happen between applications.
So that's insanely exciting. Like, I would love to drill a little bit more into that, because we we mixed up. We were initially going to have you a few weeks from now, and Roy from Breeze, and then he had some stuff going on with the situation in the Middle East, so he'll be on. And one of the things we were going to bring up was his recent article about. I'm going to butcher the title, but it was about like orange pilling's kind of over. Like, we need to find use cases, right? We need to find like products and services that are actually matter to the end user, not just Bitcoin, because like that will happen by its own thing from an ideological perspective, but we just need better products. And what you just described is just a better product. If you're a content creator and you have T plus 30 or 60 days to get paid, or you can get paid same day and not have counterparty risk, people are increasing. It doesn't even have to matter about getting deplatformed. It's just, if you could take the asset and then stream it to wherever your endpoint exchange is to get into dollars or local currency, that is just like 10 to 100x better than what you just described. And so like those things are really and so I guess drilling into that though, and we kind of jumped in, and I wanted to bring this up in the beginning. You referenced having like a traditional finance slash management consulting background, right? Kind of, there's one pocket in my mind of like an archetype, and then you like to engineer, or you're technical, which is another archetype. You generally don't see those together. And then the third is that you're creative, in that you produced a video content series, and there's some other points that you said you enjoy creating. Those are like three generally. Again, this is direct or generalizing, but different archetypes that usually don't like intertwine together. And curious, like, what would you say, if you had to, is you either feel your strongest suit or your most interest bent? Because I feel like that's an important function of what you're building here, is like when you start to tie those things together, that's when you recognize, oh, maybe AI is too niche, because other people didn't think that at the time. It's like, oh, AI and Lightning, it makes all the sense. And then we've kind of seen how that sputtered out. And that's what we've seen in Bitcoin, is generally somebody has one version of the world and they kind of go down this path, and then they're still working on it. They're not seeing the full 360 view of like, wait, there's not commercialization here. Let's figure out the things that are needed from a mass market. And I think those three different components, and there's probably more, are what's like allowing you to see this like opportunity that we're most are kind of missing. So just curious, like how you think about yourself in that respect. It's kind of a weird question, but it's But I think it ties in I think it ties in a bunch to like what you're building and the exciting opportunity ahead, and where people have kind of missed what's right in front of us.
Yeah, so I think really it's I mean, all of these are skills that can be used. That's always what I try and do, and that's why I tell everyone, it's try and build on the skills you already have, because these 3 points, like being a technical person, but being a business person and liking filmmaking, like these are things that I was kind of always into, just at different levels, right? And I think it all comes in waves. It's there's a moment I want to, I have the time and I have the idea and the energy to go and do more of some filmmaking work. Well, then I'm just going to pursue that, and I'm going to obsess over it. And so these are just all skills that you learn. And when it comes to the filmmaking side, it also, especially as a Bitcoin filmmaker, because I'm not a general filmmaker, it's really, again, I focus on Bitcoin. It's the storytelling side of it. I think it teaches a lot when it comes to just storytelling. How do you position yourself? How do you position a story that you're trying to bring forward? Make sure that everything fits in a story, that there's the right, points and the right tempo. I think these are a lot of things that I can then use in business as well, right? The technical stuff, I mean, obviously, it's just, I can build things, right? So if I wasn't a technical co-founder, we wouldn't have Flash the way it works now, because a lot of it, even though I don't think I'm the best coder, right? I think I like when I see my developers, when they go over my code, there's always a lot of changes that need to happen. but I can prototype, I can make it work, and it works, right? And to that, I think what we're also really trying to tap into Flash is we want to be able to attract every type of business. We think that there is no solution out there that uses the Bitcoin Lightning Network particularly that fits big companies. A lot of the user experience that there is some wallets that are like not great kind of experience, or they're not very well integrated with other tools. It's hard to really find a wallet and a platform that will allow it to do all of this properly. And so that's what we're trying to bring as well. And the technical side is needed for that, but having worked for big corporations just gives a very good understanding of where we need to meet them, because of course it's going to take some time, right? There's levels at which we're going to be able to reach different kinds of companies and corporations, but we have the right way of thinking about it. We know that it should just be a new system for them, and what do such systems work like? I've built them for corporations. I know what they'll be looking for. So I think all of this just lines up properly to be able to, to build things that work and that can bring value in Bitcoin. There's a lot of opportunity in Bitcoin still. There's always new technologies in Bitcoin. And so I think, there's a huge opportunity for us to disrupt things and be ahead of everyone else.
Yeah, that reminded me of something that I wanted to drill into a little bit deeper around. You mentioned, a lot of companies have thought about ways to catalyze Bitcoin payments, right, over the past several years even. And I think the default, most common solution was using some form of Lightning. But I'm curious your thoughts on sort of how that landscape has evolved in terms of, let's call it broadly, like the layers of Bitcoin, whether they're layer 2s or 3s. Basically, what is your perception and view of all of these different, basically methodologies for scaling Bitcoin, but importantly, like how they can be complementary? Because I think that's the thing that you've really keyed into here with what you're building at Flash is it's not just using Lightning. It's using Lightning, it's using nostr, it's using something like Liquid. It's really opening the aperture of how all these things can actually function together. So curious your thoughts there on sort of how that's evolved over the past, call it 12 to 24 months, and what your general view is on how people should be thinking about building, more usable Bitcoin payments. Because I think part of catalyzing that, increased usage of Bitcoin as a payment rail is just people being willing to spend their Bitcoin, right? Like that's sort of part of it. And I think that will happen slowly. But the other component is just the usability of it, right? Like the UX itself, the ease of use, the lack of friction, like all of that is critical to catalyzing that. So curious your views or thoughts on any of that.
Yeah. So, what, the way I look at it, and Journey, how we look at it at Flash, is the fact that, what matters, what people want is Bitcoin, right? Like when I look at my wallet, what I want to know is that I have Bitcoin and that it's safe and that I hold my own keys and no one will take it away from me, right? That's the important part. Then, of course, you need to be able to send and receive Bitcoin. Sending and receiving Bitcoin, this is where I think we enter more the category of there's just different technologies. And the way we look at it is that it shouldn't really matter to the user what's happening in the background. What matters is that he is receiving the payment. If we can have our own backend, because actually we didn't mention, but we're releasing our wallet, right? If we can have our own backend for our wallet that accepts and communicates all the different methods of payment that are available, which would be on-chain, which would be Lightning, Liquid, all of these within the same QR code that you sign, essentially, within the same invoice information, like, what other wallet developers receive to be able to actually process the transaction, well, then I think we can gain so much in terms of user experience. I think that it means, that new standards need to be also put together. We have a bunch of ideas on that, and, and we'll see. I think what guides standards are use cases. So if we have the right use case, then we'll be able to leverage all of that. But it just, it doesn't really make sense for me that all of this information cannot be shared and to be able to accept all of these payment methods. Because multiple wallets, if you think the Aqua wallet, well, they support Liquid, Lightning, Bitcoin on-chain, right? There's other wallets that support just on-chain and Lightning. And, there's just different technologies out there like eCash as well, right? There's gaining popularity. And all of these things, they're just tech. Developers should be able to choose what they want to build their tech on. And they can, of course. But what if all of this information could be in the same place? And I think this is where nostr Wallet Connect also brings a lot of opportunity. Because nostr Wallet Connect right now is focused on the Lightning Network. So you can, there's one function of the library that is called make invoice, which allows to create an invoice. Now, by default, so the way it works is, this information is transferred to the wallet by Nostr, and then in their backend, the wallets can see, okay, they called make invoice. What do we allow them to do with that? And so, of course, they create a Lightning invoice and they send back the Lightning hash. But there's more information that comes with nostr Wallet Connect. You can add some metadata. You can add some extra fields there, which, again, since it's just information that is organized in a way that we choose to, following certain standards, well, then I could choose as a wallet developer that when I make an invoice that is both Liquid, Lightning, and even eCash. Why not, right? And all of this information is sent back. And then the other side can just choose which one they're picking up. And I think that's what's pretty interesting here, is that it can just bring a lot of interoperability. And all of these technologies, it'll be a matter of app developers, integrating all of them, select few, whatever works for them, right? But within this shared protocol to communicate about it, because they'd be able to exchange funds with a wallet that has completely different features. They don't even know about it, and it can happen. And that's thanks to nostr Wallet Connect. So, yeah, I think there was two parts to your question, but I think that answers part of it, I guess.
Does your Bitcoin custody setup keep you up at night? Maybe you still have coins sitting on an exchange worried about hackers. Or maybe you've set up your own self-custody but don't feel safe with your Bitcoin savings stashed on a little plastic device in your desk drawer. Gain peace of mind with Onramp and our multi-institution custody solution. Here's how it works. Onramp creates a dedicated multi-sig vault just for you. 3 separate institutions each hold a key: Onramp, BitGo, and CoinCover. But none can move funds unilaterally. Instead, only you have control over your coins. With Onramp's multi-institution custody, you'll sleep better at night knowing your Bitcoin is stored with best-in-class security on-chain with fault-tolerant multi-sig. If you believe your Bitcoin is going to be worth a lot someday, don't jeopardize that future by exposing your coins to hackers on exchanges, $5 wrench attacks in the real world, or perhaps most importantly, the risk that you might screw something up with a highly technical self-custody setup. Onramp's multi-institution custody eliminates single points of failure, reduces your personal attack surface and technical burden, and provides access to financial services that allow you to confidently secure your Bitcoin, including inheritance planning, insurance-backed warranties for all balances and transactions, low-cost trading, and more. Bitcoin is a once-in-a-species asset. Secure it right. Learn more at onrampbitcoin.com.
Yeah, and I think it's worth reinforcing. We've historically seen kind of I think there's two parts to this. You guys may disagree, so be curious your thoughts. But like historically, we haven't seen a lot of use cases for like payments in Bitcoin. And I tend to believe because like spend and replace can obviously be done, but I tend to believe it's just because of the lack of adoption. Like there's only so many Bitcoin holders that exist. And then B, cost basis. So if you buy Bitcoin at 50,000, you don't really spend it at 60,000, like for a number of reasons, because you want it to appreciate. But as the cost basis grows, right? So somebody that bought at 2,000 is more likely to spend it at 50,000 in the same way that somebody bought at 200 is likely to spend it at 2,000. You grow the adoption coupled with the cost basis. So now you just have more people willing. And then so like that's one component. I think we're at a really exciting time with what we all feel on the precipice of the price appreciation is a proxy for awareness and more users. But then the other side, which you just referenced, is I never thought of it in that way, is that most of the Lightning or most of the payment companies have tried to enforce the use case on the end client, which you can't, because that's just not how markets work. It's like the market has to come up with the use case and pull what it's being used. And so what Flash is doing, in my understanding, is providing the middleware to provide that. It's the same way like Stripe can't go and say, use Stripe for this. It's like the market says, oh, I needed Stripe for this type of service to accept payments. And so by pushing that to the edges and giving the best tools, the market's going to pull forward what are the ways to pay. And because pulling forward is the other side of like providing the service that somebody wants to use their Bitcoin for, versus trying to say, this is what you use it for. Because we all know that, without naming any names, like the vendors and the, what is it, like the terminals, and saying, oh, we have partnerships here. But it's like, that's not how consumer behavior goes. And like, you can't make assumptions that somebody's going to download an application, and instead of going, like, we have the best applications, Apple Pay and Tap with our credit cards, to switch that. There's no way we can forecast that. It's just the market pulls it because they have the use cases. So it's just an interesting thing that you kind of referenced. I just thought of.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think generally speaking, the what we try and do also at Flash is, and that's why we focus on a B2B product first, is because why would people come to Bitcoin? They're either degens, as they like to call them, people that kind of the same path that I took towards Bitcoin, which was just kind of digging deep into finance, the economy, and like all this big Bitcoin rabbit hole that there is. But I think that there's literally billions of people out there that won't ever care about that. And I think that the great solution with self-custody is the fact that there is no requirement and no new risk that we present to our users, right? So because they always hold custody of their own funds, so we can easily go to different places. We can right now, we just saw this, the number one country from where people come visit our website, our landing page, is Nigeria, which is pretty interesting. And in Nigeria, it's very difficult for people to be able to use solutions like Stripe, Cash App, or whatever it is to be able to manage their businesses. It's just, the entire KYC processes are a nightmare. We could talk about this forever. I did 2 years of research for another Bitcoin documentary that talks about the monetary system and what institutions control it and how, and so on. So we could really go there for a long time. But if you think of countries in Africa, there's people that just cannot do KYC, like literally cannot do KYC because they cannot get IDs, right? There's places where there's no address, and if you don't have an address, you can't do KYC, right? Because KYC has to follow standards that are set in Switzerland, right, by someone that lives in a completely different world, right? And so these people, we can bring the right modern payment solutions that they should have, because thanks to self-custody, well, it's easy for us to go into these markets because again, we never touch their funds. We're just this intermediary. We present no new risk for them, and there's no requirement for KYC. And for them, I think the opportunity there is huge. And all of these people, all of these potential users, if they come in from this B2B aspect, well, then they can bring in some end users as well. Right? And the use cases that we'll be able to build through direct application integrations with instant payments without custody, while allowing every single intermediary and application developers to still get paid a fee per transaction, right? Because in the end, this is how Flash works, right? Without custody, we can still trigger fee payments and get paid this way. And we can add more individuals to these payments. And so I think the use cases we'll be able to bring there are just going to completely innovate, I think, the internet and how we interact online, the same way we do it with Zaps on Nostr, but just at a greater scale, because it can be more directly integrated.
Yeah, and it's embedded and implied that with the B2B, you're pushing the solution from like their clients, their users. So the C in that, the B2B to C, they have their own angle, whether it's peer to peer. We had Abu Bakr on and talking about his interest or early getting Bitcoin exposure and how he had to go and figure out how to get BTC. So they will figure it out, and then they will spend that Bitcoin with a tool like that. And so you don't have to understand or figure that out. And then the other thing that's super fascinating that most people don't talk about is because Bitcoin's money, the financial services are localized. At the end of the day, people want to work with the local merchant. They don't want to work across the state, country, world with the counterparty. And so by pushing and providing the tooling, it just opens up that topography of use cases versus having like a siloed focus where they have to come to you for that product or service.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
One thing you said in there, Pierre, was around just your monetization model. If you could provide a little bit more color there in terms of, transaction fees and how Flash is monetizing its products and services relative to, some other models that we've seen out there, which are more sort of subscription based, and how your thought process went into that decision.
Yeah. So essentially, out there, there's a bunch of solutions that also allow to make accept payments, particularly for e-commerce, right? I think that's the number one use case that people get into because it's much easier to it's much easier to generate invoices and allow people to receive money than it is to make outgoing invoices. You can automate the generation of invoices much more easily than you can automate the payments. And so that's what everyone goes for, because it's pretty simple. You've got a store, you've got a product, and the moment someone wants to pay, there has to be a checkout and there has to be an invoice for it. And it's fine, I think it works great. But at the same time, that's just not the standard model for payment gateways and payment processors in the fiat world, right? They all moved on to a percentage-based fee. And I think it's for a bunch of different reasons. It's to simplify user onboarding, right? Because it's free until you earn, like what a great deal that is, right? Of course, it's a no-brainer rather than paying for something that you're uncertain how much is going to cost you. And even such solutions people pay for, right? People will have Shopify stores that earn them zero, and it's just a cost month by month, but they still choose to cover this cost. And there are companies out there that follow a model like that in the Bitcoin space, including in the self-custodial Bitcoin space, like Zaprise, which I think, they're great guys, and I think they have a great approach to all of that. But it's complicated for them because every single wallet that is compatible with them is an individual connection. So they have to do a separate integration for all of the functionalities so it's an entire backend section that they need to build for each of the wallets. And they need to, of course, always stay up to date when updates come into this or that API or SDK, and they need to change their code. I think it's pretty complicated. Nostr Wallet Connect resolves that. And so again, because they don't use Nostr Wallet Connect, well, they cannot trigger payments. They essentially cannot make subscriptions. Literally, before Nostr Wallet Connect, subscriptions in Bitcoin in a self-custodial manner was impossible. And there's other Bitcoin and including Lightning focused payment gateways like OpenNode, Speed. They're out there, and they do have a fee per transaction revenue model, but they are custodial solutions. So they get paid, and then you can withdraw to your own account, which, again, in this world of empowering peer-to-peer transactions and not adding new risk to your users, they're not aligned with that vision. And so, there's a real gap there. And essentially, we're the only ones that allow for self-custody while taking a transaction fee for that. And for those that are wondering, the way we can take a transaction fee without taking custody of users' funds, even if it's for a split second, is that we trigger multiple transactions. So if a user gets paid through our store, because he has, he's selling shoes on a Flash store, well, then the payment will go from the end user that is scanning the QR code on his screen, for example, directly to that merchant's wallet. And we know when the merchant gets paid. And after he's received payment, we trigger the fee that gets paid to our wallet directly. So rather than holding the amount for even a split second and then send part of that, well, then we make sure that the payment goes straight to them, because there's different platforms that have tried to essentially do what Flash is doing, but they were holding, even if it was a split second, like literally 1 second. And I forgot what's the name of this platform. It was Canadian, I believe. And that's from around November last year or December last year. They had to shut down because they got a cease and desist note, because they were holding custody of their users' funds, but they weren't KYCing them or anything, right? And seeing this, for me, it was instant signal. It means, okay, well, like, we have to get away from that. We have to be able to find a way to trigger payments and get paid without ever touching users' funds, because that's the best way to have a target on our head.
Yeah, Bottle Pay was fantastic back in the day, and they ran into the similar issue where they had these like nice embeddable things on like skins on Twitter, and you could pay. And because of that fee structure, they kind of had to slow down, and then the kind of rest is history there. One thing that I think is worth calling out is the fee structure. I think it's a very polarizing thing in the Bitcoin space on a fee, because when people think about credit cards and they have like this assumption or 3% and all the things embedded in there, and that Bitcoin payments fees, whether it's custody, and this isn't everyone, but I think it's worth calling it, like whether it's custody or payments should be flat, and it makes zero sense. It makes sense, like at its face value, I should be flat because you're sending it and you send a Bitcoin transaction. There's a fees you pay there. The protocol doesn't know how much you send. But when you think about goods and services of business, it doesn't make sense, because ultimately, let's say something like Flash, if you don't send much money, well, you pay zero fees. But if you're sending an insane amount of capital through, well, you should pay for that, because if you're sending that amount of money through, you want that business to provide goods and services and to exist into the future. And if you're paying a flat fee and everybody's paying a flat fee, and Flash ends up sending, tens of millions, hundreds of millions, billions of dollars, well, the services and the additional financial services on top of that, you want them to be best in class in the security profile, and that doesn't come with a flat fee. In the same way with like custody, most people have kind of been lulled to sleep with paying zero. You pay for it somewhere, whether it's self-custody, you pay for it. If somebody can break in your house, you have to figure that out. In the same way, if you pay for it with the peace of mind, like a multi-institution that Onramp provides, well, you pay for that because you have 3 institutions safeguarding that. And it comes up a lot, well, it should be flat. It's like, well, what we'd love to do it flat is if we're securing tens of billions, if not hundreds of billions, well, you want us to be your financial partner in the future. And you want to think about all the different financial services that are required, and also the proportional security that comes along with it. So it's just it's an interesting fallacy. And I think it's more of how early we are, that people just assume it all needs to be flat, but they're not thinking about like the financial counterparty in the future. They don't really want them to be a flat fee if they actually work with them deeply embedded in their life, because they want them to be alive and then also provide best in class services, and that can't come with a flat structure.
Yeah, and I think essentially, that's where the we have to make a distinction. It's that there's a difference between a transaction fee and a service fee, right? In our case, transaction fees are from our wallets. They'll be whatever the network requires, right? And whatever other wallet anyone uses, it just depends on that. And the end user, I mean the customer. So again, if there's a Flash merchant, so then there's a customer that is buying from him. Well, then this customer never pays more than whatever his wallet is going to charge him. We don't charge the end customer. What we will charge is the merchant, because the merchant is monetizing through us, right? And so he's using our tools to be able to do that. And that's where it's a service fee, essentially. And I know that Bitcoiners sometimes have a bit of a problem with that, but at the same time, I think it's hard for them to argue on a service fee that is, instant settlement among multiple parties. I think that's if there's a way of making fees, I think that's the right way of doing it. But it's just like some individuals weren't a big fan of the subscriptions when we released them in late March, because that's. Bitcoin allows us to move away from subscriptions, because you can have these per interaction payments and the value for value kind of models and all of these things, which are great. I mean, we want to be able to support, again, anyone and however they choose to monetize. If you want to be a value for value person and just want to be able to, monetize easily different some of the content you put out there, just being able to receive payments through a payment button or something like that. Well, you can do it with Flash. But if you want to be, someone that wants to have a predictable, planned income and organize yourselves through subscriptions, that is it's a huge industry. There's billions of dollars that are spent through subscriptions, and I know I'm subscribed to more services than I could list right now if you asked me to, right? And that's part of the reason why it is such a popular way of monetizing, because it allows to manage churn very easily, and it allows to just predict the earnings that you're going to have as a company better. So it just makes sense that it's out there. And if it's something that is, trending in the fiat payment space, I think it's the kind of payment that everyone is looking for. And so we should be able to provide these solutions as well, as long as it's always self-custodial, right? And instant settlement. That's, I think, the rest is just talk. I think what matters is that people get what they want, and it remains non-custodial.
Yeah, that optionality is key. What are you going to say, Michael?
A final settlement, not instant settlement. It's just
exactly.
That's right.
One, you mentioned you leaked a little bit of alpha that you guys have a wallet coming out. Anything else you want to talk about around that, and sort of the sort of strategic vision for the wallet as part of the business, and then also sort of anything else looking ahead on the roadmap for Flash?
Yeah, so we the decision to build a wallet came from the fact that we wanted to simplify user onboarding. And of course, make sure that we have the right solution for our users that is free, so they can just get on board and have a wallet they can use for their personal use if they want to, but it is automatically connected to a Flash account. So the Flash wallet will be a mobile wallet in its first version, completely self-custodial. We're actually using the Breeze SDK, and it'll come out in the next coming weeks, for the 1st of November for sure. But we want to release some, alpha version before that, maybe to get some testing going. And essentially, we focus on user experience. We focus on making sure that it is simple to use, it is clear. So this is what the wallet is going to be focused around. Really, we want to make it look nice, look and feel like a modern fintech banking application. But on top of that, it will be directly linked to the user's Flash account. It'll be linked to Nostr, and it'll be linked to with Nostr Wallet Connect. So you'll be able to use it everywhere. And not only that, but the wallet will be connected to everything that you do in Flash as well. So any kind of monetization that you do through these tools will be received on the wallet directly. But you will also be able to see all of your reporting, get notifications about any kind of incoming revenue and so on directly on your phone, and be able to see this nicely. Yeah, so I think that's something to look forward to, because it's going to be the first wallet of its kind that is directly, linked to all the business solutions that we have. We hope to be able to bring, of course, a lot of B2C people, just regular consumers, to use it, because we think it's going to be a great wallet experience. And hopefully, we can also redirect them to using Flash to monetize, because this is the moment we get paid, first of all, of course. But on top of that, again, these solutions are so easy. Anyone can implement them for anything that they're working on. So might as well try and increase your revenue if it's just as easy as owning a wallet. So that's going to be the focus now. But early next year, we want to be able to release also business wallets, so more targeted towards enterprise. And this wallet, we'd want it to be a desktop wallet rather, so accessible through the browser, simply because, again, this is where enterprise will be doing their work. It's not going to be the CEO or a head accountant that holds a mobile phone and all of the funds are there. Like, that's not how such clients are going to use such technology. So we need to be able to meet them where they are. So browser will be the first thing. We want to be able to add extra features that increase security, making sure that the keys, the custody of the keys can be shared among different individuals in the company. So simplifying some multi-sig as well on the Lightning Network. And being able to just better serve bigger types of clients with a wallet that today doesn't exist and isn't in the market. There's no good option for business today when it comes to the Lightning Network. And and then have the original one more for the B2C people as well, that maybe don't have a enterprise profile, but still want to have a great user experience and even monetize directly, just with a always on device that'll be their mobile phone.
Yeah, that's super exciting. I think we all kind of feel it on the consumer side. You kind of play hot potato with the wallet, right? There's like Moon, there's Mutiny, and everybody kind of moves around given the complexities of building a wallet that's easy to use when it comes to on-chain, and then like Lightning or second layers. And so I will, I know you guys have a lot planned there, so you could share it kind of in the future, but there's a lot of interesting stuff I know you guys are working on to simplify that experience. So when somebody downloads it, they won't have to deal with the complexity of figuring out how they're getting paid. They'll just be able to net settle and then move it out in a non-custodial fashion.
I mean, the way it's going to work in its first version is that a user that comes onto our website creates a Flash account. He goes through the onboarding. We get him to create the Flash wallet. So directly, he'll take his phone out, scan the QR code, install the wallet. And the moment he does that, his wallet will be connected with the Flash account directly, and he'll be able to make payments even on the internet through the Flash web application. And when he creates any one of our gateways, subscriptions, products, whatever it is, well, his wallet will be there as the default option. So he doesn't even need to think about making a connection. We want to make it so that the user doesn't even realize where his wallet truly lies. Is it in his pocket or is it on the browser? We can mix these experiences so it just feels extremely easy and without all of the complexity that usually comes with having a Bitcoin Lightning wallet at the beginning.
Yeah, no, that's super exciting. Very eager to test that out once it's live in the marketplace. So thanks for walking through that. Maybe this is a good spot to wrap. I mean, this has been a fantastic conversation, Pierre, and learned a lot about what Flash is doing, and super excited for you guys. And I'm sure we'll have you on again in the near future. But anything else you wanted to get out there, or where can people learn more about Flash or yourself?
Yeah, I think it's what we're working on is definitely interesting, innovative, and we need people to test it out, to work with it, to help us in building it, share ideas. There's just a lot of things that can be done. So anyone can reach out to us, of course. Our website is paywithflash.com, and there's all the information there. You can directly access the web app. It's free. The only moment you pay something is the moment you earn anything, so it's a net positive for you as a user. So go check out the app as well. We're trying to put a lot of effort on user experience and making it feel nice, just like what people are used to. So paywithflash.com. You can find me on Twitter at CEO Corbin. Well, just Pierre Corbin. I think you'll find me as well. And I think that's it. But thanks a lot for having me on, guys. It was really, really good conversation. Always good to be able to go so deep into these topics that I think about all day, but I don't talk about much.
Yeah, absolutely. Appreciate you making the time.
Thanks for joining, Pierre.
Thank you.
All right, and that'll do it for this episode of Final Settlement. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for listening to this week's episode of the show. If you found the information valuable, please share the episode with a friend or leave a rating on your favorite podcast app. All the links we discussed in today's show will be in the show notes inside your podcast app. Before we finish, a quick reminder that Onramp Media is for informational and entertainment purposes only, and nothing should be construed as investment or legal advice. Regardless of where you are on your Bitcoin journey, we'd love to hear from you. Visit onrampbitcoin.com/contact to schedule a consultation with one of our private client advisors.